We're on page 401. Siman Chaf Alef. We left off in Seif Daled. Maran left us off here. Yesh li zaher. One should be careful. When Maran uses the words yesh, one should be careful. And not lo. One is prohibited from. Or asu. What is Maran telling us?
That it's not prohibited completely?
Exactly. It's not exactly a prohibition from the main halakha, but it's
somebody?
strongly not suggested.
Hitting the baby.
Yeah.
No, Chas v'shalom, what are we saying?
You're talking about topic again.
Oh no, now we're talking about tzitzit.
Now we're in tzitzit.
Yesh li zaher.
We left that book, now we're in this
One should be careful.
I thought of saying
Sh'adam lovesh talit. When a person wears his talit, shelo yigarer tzitziotav. That his strings of his tzitzit should not drag on the ground.
Don't drag tzitzit.
Page 401.
Here. Oh, we're on Daled. Over here.
Under the two lines.
Yeah.
Yud. Yesh li zaher. One should be careful. Shelo yihiyu hatzitziot nigrarot al haaretz. That the tzitziot should not be dragged on the ground. V'chol shetzitziyotav nigarot al haaretz, and it says, our rabbis teach us that anyone whose tzitziot are dragged on the ground, alav ha'katuv omer, the pasuk in Yeshaya says something that I don't want to read. It's just not a good prophecy. Meaning, one should be careful not to drag their tzitziot on the ground.
Why? You don't have to go into detail, but
I don't like to translate curses and read them out loud towards people. God forbid, it's not
Okay.
applicable to any of you, right? So
Okay.
let's skip it. We've got enough problems in our own life.
yeah. Okay.
Normally people wouldn't have tzitzit that would be that long though that they would drag on the ground, right? So we're talking about
Explain.
like taking them off, or like when you're putting them on, taking them, like kind of
Give me a better scenario.
carelessly.
What
like
if you
you're in
go
the
into a
bathroom,
shul, you're a short guy, and you found like a big talit?
Oh yeah, well that's right. Yeah, sure.
Why do you have to
Shul
be a
said-
short guy? What about your talit in general?
Yeah, so
People
in
wear
general,
big
so
talit.
talit-
You
the
wear a
big
big talit.
Yeah.
So the back part of your talit, it's
Slips
probably,
down or-
it could slip, it could be a little too low, it could hang down. People who wear small talitot rarely have this problem. Right, tzitzit, like the one you wear in your clothing, is probably not an issue.
Yeah.
Though there are some people who wear some pretty long. I was in a place recently and I saw a guy with tzitzit down to his ankles.
Yeah.
Oh.
Ankles, literally ankles. I'm
Yeah.
not exaggerating. They almost touch the top of his shoe.
Sagging.
Yeah.
You taking it off?
It's an old Jewish custom. I believe Yeshu complained about this in the New Testament. That the rabbis used to make their tzitzit too long. And just saying, it's got an old source,
So
from the New
That
Testament.
explains why he did what he did, right? Jesus.
No,
No,
you should know. Yeshu was, aside from being a fool, was also a big hater of rabbinic Jews, of
Yeah.
Pharisees.
The
as they call them.
Pharisees,
So,
yeah.
if you want some good anti-Semitic literature, you can just read the passages about the Jews. And that's one of the things he calls out. Oh, scribes and Pharisees. He's famous for
Yeah.
complaining like that. At least he was Jewish. He complained all the time.
When you're taking it off, you have to also be careful. It doesn't go
Wait.
around.
This is the next halakha. You're right.
Oh,
Page 402. V'yesh omrim, some say, Dahainu dafka b'shad levisha. This only applies when you wear the talit. Where do they get that from? Why only when you wear it?
Because maybe you're washing it, or
Talking about Pharisees, read this like a keret. Imagine you were a Shulchan Aruch keret. What does Shulchan Aruch literally say?
You shouldn't drag them on the ground.
I'll read to you again. Yesh zaher. One should be careful.
When they're wearing a talit.
Sh'adam lovesh. When a person is wearing talit, his
Right.
talit,
It's a different
shelo
size.
yigarer tzitziyotav. The tzitziot should not drag on the
oh,
floor.
so when you're carrying them, then feel fine to feel
Oh,
free.
so if you're wearing it,
Yeah.
meaning like it's activated for its mitzvah, then you shouldn't drag it. En lachush lekach shetzitziyotav, aval achar shavash talit, but after you wear your talit, you're taking it off. En lachush lekach, you don't have to worry, shetzitziyotav nigarot al haaretz derech hiluchom, that the tzitziot are being dragged on the ground as you walk. This is a valid Jewish opinion.
So maybe it's because the talit has no inherent sacredness as such, whereas the siddur,
And you're not wearing it as such.
yeah, and you're not wearing it, yeah, but The fact you're wearing it makes it sacred,
Okay,
but
this is where this
yeah.
opinion comes from. V'yesh omrim, and some say, she'af achar levisha, that even after you take it off, tzarich lizaher b'zeh. One should be careful with this.
This is for some of the topic that's worth examining, because it seems like certain objects have very specific limitations in time and space when they are kadosh and when they're not. Like a lulav and etrog, for example, or even to some degree you could say matzah, or when it becomes something that's used in the mitzvah, it's in a different status than when it's not.
We mentioned there's teshmishei kedusha, things which are used as kedusha, and things which are used for a mitzvah, and they have different statuses in Jewish law. A tefillin is different than a talit. The bag that holds a tefillin is different than the bag that holds the talit. For example, I see many people don't know the tzalacha. There's a bar mitzvah, they throw candies. You can keep those candies inside of your talit bag. You cannot keep those candies inside of your tefillin bag. Nothing's allowed to go inside of your tefillin bag aside from tefillin. Not even your siddur, nothing, just tefillin. Which is the same reason why nothing can go into the Aron Kodesh except for a Torah. Unfortunately, many Sephardic communities have a big problem, and they have these haftarah books, which are an absolute modern-day invention. We didn't have haftarah books in any Sephardic country we came from, unless, like the Ashkenazim, we actually had them on parchment, real parchment. But what is the haftarah book? It's made to look like a Torah. It's printed on paper. It has no inherent. It's not anymore. As the siddur is holier than it.
The one we used to have was printed on paper.
Absolutely, of course.
Really? And people were kissing and
that's why I
carrying it
always,
around
if
and
you
standing
remember
for
back
it,
then, I
yeah.
put it on the bottom shelf with some tablecloths. The people should know the bottom shelf is not the Aron Kodesh. And unfortunately, some Sephardic rabbis have bowed to the pressure of the communities, and they've come up with all kinds of answers why you're allowed to keep it in there. And
More things
the Aron
to
Kodesh
kiss.
is not as holy, and it's really a thing. It's a problem. It shows. Rav Soloveitchik, Alav Shalom, once came into Yeshiva University. The first time they celebrated Yom HaAtzmaut at Yeshiva University. And they did a little bit of a lechadodi and a little bit of Torah reading, a haftarah reading with no blessings. That was an interesting mix of things. And Rav Soloveitchik, they say, I read a recording, a transcript of this class. And he came in and he said, and you know me, I celebrate Yom HaAtzmaut, so nobody should suspect me of... He came in and he said, I hate things that stink like amaratzus. What is it? Stink like ignoramuses, like ignorance. So, sit down, figure out on which days do we read the Torah, on which days do we read the Haftarah. What is the purpose of reading without a blessing? When do you institute Hallel with a blessing, without a blessing? When do you read a half or a whole? When do you say Lechadodi? When do you don't mush everything together into some ritual and then expect me to we do this every year, by the way, in Yom HaAtzmaut. And I look the other way because what can I do? It's a communal gathering and people get together, but really that whole service, like Rav Soloveitchik said, I wish I could publish. Rav Soloveitchik said, it stinks like amaranth. It
Well, who
smells.
made this siddur? Because they don't have the actual siddur. They just made photocopies from some sort of siddur.
I'm not talking about an institution. It's a very common thing in Israel. You go to Israel, it seems like somebody in the chief rabbinate threw together this book. But Judaism is not a set of rituals. Everything was put together for a reason. And I believe in celebrating Yom HaAtzmaut. Celebrate it like a holiday. You have no other holiday in the world where you come at night and you're say a Hallel, and aside from Pesach, which is an old Jewish custom, and some communities say Hallel at night. There's no other holiday in the world, especially not a rabbinic holiday. It's a strange. The whole thing is strange. And the Chadodi, the Chadodi was written by a Kabbalist in Tzfat that was meant to be said on Friday nights.
Yeah,
So now you take some verses of the Chadodi and you switch the chorus to another. It smells like amaranth. So that's what Rav Soloveitchik would call it. It really does. And it's almost, if you really understand the way the Siddur works, you'll be repulsed by it. It's bothersome. It's not the correct way to think of Kadosh Baruch Hu. It's nice. It means well. People intend well. But a big Talmid Chacham should sit down and put together such a service.
Well, would you call it a secular holiday?
No.
So if it's a religious holiday, then they want to create some kind of ritual.
I'm all for it. In my community, we celebrate Yom HaAtzmaut as a religious holiday. I wear my Shabbat clothes on Yom HaAtzmaut. But religious holidays should be put together by religious people who understand the religion. One of our chief rabbis should sit down and decide for us a text that we would use on the prayer for the state of Israel. The prayer for the state of Israel was written by Rabbi Uziel. I've seen it, unfortunately, attributed to many people. Chaim Nachman Bialik and Shai Agnon. It's printed in a book called Mechamanei Uziel, the it's from Rav Uziel. His version, he had a few versions actually. Why they chose that one, I don't know. But this version of the prayer for the state of Israel was, and you could tell the person who wrote it was familiar with the opening, middle, and closing of a prayer. He knew how to do this. It wasn't like someone just threw it together on their own. Then the prayer for the United States of America, the prayer that we say for the government.
Yeah.
We've been saying this in different forms, for the Queen, for the Czar, for whoever country we were in, and in the same formula, very similar formulas, was written by a person who was familiar with the language of tefillot, of writing a tefillah. And sometimes you read prayers and they're sad. They're sad to read because you can tell a person who wrote it meant well but didn't understand the formulas in tefillah. Sometimes rabbis, but not all rabbis were created equally.
How much standardization is there in the Yom HaTzmaut?
You can't standardize it. There's an interesting book, and this is a tangent, but it's a good tangent, so don't cut it out of the video, Barry. We have a book, a set of books called Mekor Chaim by Rabbi Chaim David Halevy. I've quoted him to you many times, Rav Chaim David Halevy. Rav Chaim David Halevy was a student of Rav Kook and a student of Rav Uziel, and in a yeshiva around the time of Rabbi Ovadia Yosef. So it was from that generation. Rabbi Ovadia Yosef was the chief rabbi of Tel Aviv Yafo. He had an interesting series which they're now finally printing again. People didn't learn them for many years, and then now the religious Zionist camp in Israel adopted these books. They reached a point where they were teaching so much halakha, but it hit them in the face that all the rabbis they were studying were not Zionists. And so they had to look for that Zionist rabbi who wrote books of halakha they could teach in school. So, hey, you ever heard about that guy, Rabbi Chaim David Halevy? Oh, yeah, him, right? He wrote dozens of books on halakha. And all of a sudden, from a few years ago, when I went to go buy his books, and they were out of print, you had to buy them in the bookstores that were used. Now I've had brand new sets, new nikudot, new printing, laser print. It's incredible. In a few years, his books have just come back to the Jewish scene. Rav Chaim David Halevy has a volume on the holidays. And in there he talks about Chanukah and Sukkot and Pesach and Shavuot and Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, Lag BaOmer, and then he has one paragraph on Yom HaTzmaut. And in there he writes, Yom HaTzmaut was the beginning of the Jewish people's redemption. And it deserves its own chapter in its own right. But what can I do that so many Jews, even those who celebrate Yom HaTzmaut, are split as to how to celebrate it, or what level of importance it carries, or how religious of a holiday is it? He said, I don't feel it intellectually honest to, at this point in history. He said, he writes this with tears in his eyes. He doesn't feel that at this point in history it's honest to codify it as a holiday that all the Jewish people agree on. He said, I therefore will dedicate another book to the discussion of the state of Israel and the beginning of the redemption. I have that other book. And he very much felt this is a unique stance because he's from the religious Zionist camp. But he felt like you can't standardize something unless it's really standard. And unfortunately, even among those of us who celebrate Yom HaTzmaut, you see that we don't all agree on how and when and what. And just from the simple fact that when Yom HaTzmaut is pushed off, which many years it is, most Jews will celebrate it on the day that it's pushed off. In our Beit Midrash, we would never push off Yom HaTzmaut. Whenever Yom HaTzmaut falls out, the 5th of the year falls out, we celebrate it the 5th of the year. We don't let anybody push around. It's too religious of a day to be pushed around whenever someone decides. If it's on Shabbat, we'll celebrate it. And there were a number of rabbis who did such things. And they were bullied by the establishment. Some rabbis from Yeshiva University, some rabbis from the Rav Kook community in Israel, and they were just bullied to the point where it's very rare. I was in Israel for Yom HaTzmaut last year and it was pushed off. I could not find a minyan in HaShamayim that celebrated Yom HaTzmaut on the day that Yom HaTzmaut followed up. I would have had to travel to Efrat and I didn't have the ability to get there. So it was an interesting thing. It was not just one day. Hashem will open up the Jewish people's eyes and we'll get together and we'll figure out how to do it right.
If you drop a tefillin bag on the ground, you're supposed to kiss it without the tefillin in it?
Interesting. It's an interesting question. The whole thing of kissing things that fall is generally it's an emotional response, not a halachic requirement.
I know.
So
Is it
the answer is a tefillin. Yeah, a tefillin bag is holier than a tefillin bag. Probably in halacha is most similar to an aron kodesh. Most similar. It's not the same thing. Obviously, a tefillin and a tolah are different, but most similar. Watch, I'm gonna have people now. Next high holidays, we're gonna sell the opening of the tefillin bags. We're gonna have a ptichat tefillin in the parnasa. We're gonna have a nice addition to the auction.
Bring it on.
Say, why are you kissing the tefillin
Yesh
bag?
omrim, some say Shedafka betalit gadol, shehu l'shem mitzvah, that only by your main talit, which is for the sake of a mitzvah, yesh lachmir. One should be strict. Aval betalit katan shlosho derech malbush, but a small tzitzit, the one that you wear normally as your clothing, yesh lakel. You can be lenient about that part touching the floor. There are some that have that opinion. V'nachon lachush lamachmirim. One should be careful on why not be like the strict people. The machmirim kosher tzitziot nigot and aretz b'ofen kavua. We don't want to have any way that the tzitziot are actually touching the ground on a constant basis.
Does it also matter if the ground is carpeted or?
Okay, we're going to see this in the next halakha, which is a good point. I'll tell you where he comes from. His calculation is, some rabbis say it's forbidden. Some rabbis say it's permitted. There are proofs that back up those who say it's permitted to let the tzitzit touch the ground. So his middle ground is, if your tzitzit just randomly touch the ground by accident, don't go crazy over it. You're folding your talit and the tzitzit hit the ground, don't go crazy over it. But if consistent, you're wearing your talit and the whole tefillah is dragging around the floor of the Beit Knesset, that's when you should worry a strict opinion. You have on whom to rely and use that only when you need to. And there are times you'll know yourself. The next point that Zev brought up, it's not exactly answered here, but it's important it's similar. V'yesh machmirim b'zeh, some are stringent about this. Gam kshatzitziot nigarot al gabei safsal o itztaba. Even if your tzitziot are dragging on the chairs, or on the benches, or on the tables. I mean, dragging in general is disrespectful. It doesn't have to be the floor, Dafna. You wouldn't take your siddur and go, slide it across the table. That would be disrespectful. And the same thing with tzitziot. Some say you would be careful with that as well. If someone who's careful about this, tava alav bracha, he should receive a blessing. And the people who want to be lenient say that Shulchan Aruch doesn't mention dragging on the ground. It just mentions dragging. And that's their source for saying that dragging at tzitziot in any case would be prohibited. This is important. A person should be careful. This is the Ben Ish Chai who wrote this in his book Od Yosef Chai. It's the second volume to the Ben Ish Chai. He says that people should be careful not to sit on their tzitziot. What does it mean, not sit on your tzitziot?
When you're wearing your talit sitting down, make sure they're not under your legs or under your rear
So are we talking about the fabric of the garment or the knots?
nuts.
The knots. Yeah?
But what about talit katan you're wearing?
The fabric of the tzitzit or the talit you could sit on, it's the strings that you shouldn't be sitting on. So also talit katan.
Well, it's tucked in, you're sitting on it.
Correct. It's one of the opinions why a person shouldn't tuck them in. I'm okay with people tucking tzitzit in. But I'm just sharing.
Okay.
One of the reasons is because people can't be careful where those tzitzit are going. There's a way. It could be on the side of your legs. It don't have to be on the back of your legs. A person can try.
Okay.
See,
And again, this is a chumrah. This is stringency. It's not actual halakha.
did you, I hope you don't mind me asking, you memorized that this from the Ben Ish Chai, or is there some reference?
No, there's a source on the bottom, and I learned this when I was younger. But the source is there. What do you say?
Thank you. Oh, what do you
You're
say?
welcome. No, I'm not some genius who remembers everything by heart. That's. When I was in yeshiva in Baltimore, there was a big push on memorizing things, memorizing rabbis' names, the teachings, the volumes, the page numbers, and I don't learn like that very well. I know very often who said what, but where and why and how and the very details, the page number, the paragraph number, very rare. And it almost felt like a little bit inadequate. And then when I went to Alef KSH yeshiva, he was very against memorizing things by heart. Not actively against. If you know things by heart, good for you. But very often in a test, he would say, "Why don't you get up and go bring the Shulchan Aruch?" But it's a test on Shulchan Aruch. This is great. I don't expect in 10 years from now, when you're sitting in your office and somebody asks you a question on halakha, you're going to remember which page like you learned it yesterday. I would much rather you know where to look it up when a person asks you a question.
Called an open book test.
Oh, but it wasn't really an open book test. You couldn't come and check the answers while you were. It's an oral test. It has to have a conversation. But there was less pressure on memorizing details and actually internalizing the knowledge that you were
Most
studying.
of the books, look at the back, they go topic and page where you can look at it.
Correct.
That's all you have to know.
Yeah.
One has to know how to research.
But you have to know how to look things up. You'd be
Yeah.
surprised how many people will have a table of contents staring them in the face or an index and they won't know where to find something.
It's called research. A rabbi has to do research because every situation is unique.
Correct.
I mean, there may be a body of knowledge one has here, but because the human life is fairly infinite.
When I picked up my parents from the airport, he came in for my wedding. It was maybe 11 o'clock at night. He wanted to go pray Arvit, so we went to go look for a minyan. While we were driving, my friend David Gindi was driving, and I was next to the rabbi asking him questions and halakha, things like that. Bothering him after a 12-hour flight. And at that point, I hadn't seen him for like a year and a half, so I was very excited to see him. And I asked him a question. I said, Arav, we're talking about the laws of marriage, because he was going to do the chuppah the next day. I thought, something that you mentioned in your book on marriage, Chacham Ovadia Yosef disagrees with you on. Do you remember why he disagreed with you? Can you explain to me his reasoning? I should be on the camera. It's okay. Her parents would say it again. That's not a problem. But then I don't remember. So I remember. I said, I only remember intelligent things. And that was my reaction.
Yeah.
And he said, in general, I said, in life, you don't have room in your brain to remember everything. He said, I remember. He wrote me the letter. I looked it up. He wasn't correct. So I remember that I'm right. And then the rest of it is, there's no need to remember all the arguments against you. And I'll tell you the truth. It sounds a little haughty, but if you ask Alpez for his phone number, he doesn't know his phone number.
Really?
I'll always send you to the lady in the office to get his phone number. So she knows my phone number. Or you're asking for...
Wow.
Because it doesn't have... Very often I would take him to the bus, and he'd ask me to count out his change. He doesn't know how to count shekels and money, and it doesn't deal ever with shekels or money. They say about the Ramchal, one of the rabbis, when they tried to persecute him and they're freeing from Bedin, one of the rabbis gave testimony about him. He said, I'll tell you, I was by the Ramchal. You say he's a Kabbalist trying to steal money from people, and he's a sorcerer, and he said, I'll tell you that Tzura de Matbea lo yadeh. He didn't even know the shape of a coin. If you would put in front of him a $100 bill, he wouldn't know if it was 100 cents, $100. He wouldn't know. Sometimes people use their brain for better things. So in his Beit Midrash, pushed us very much to remember the things you needed to know, and
Isn't often, God forbid, senility when a person gets older, but that they've processed so much information that to keep it all when you're looking back.
correct.
And also you tend to sift and catalog things that has more essential
Very good.
meaning. But at least you know how to get that information.
Yeah, when you need it, you can go look
It's
it
on
up.
your hard drive.
That's very important.
So usually the converse is that if you remember it, it's important. In other words, if it's there, then it has to be important, rather than you memorize only important things. You go the opposite way and you say, if you remember it,
Then it was
then
important.
it's important.
Correct. There's a very, this I only learned by Alpha. This was not my upbringing in Baltimore, but the style of learning is to learn how to prioritize everything in life, but especially when you learn. Prioritize what you learn, when you learn, even which opinions. So sometimes you see an opinion, like skip it. If this book comes up again, just skip it, because it's not worth and it's very interesting, because it's not a normal style of study, but it taught us very well to remember the things that need to be remembered. I have so many friends that you ask them a question, they'll tell you everywhere in the Gemara that was mentioned, everywhere in the Rambam was mentioned, everywhere in the Rashba was mentioned. You ask them, so what do you do? Oh, I don't remember what the rabbis nowadays tell you should do. So what are you good for? What do you actually know? You know a lot of knowledge, information, but there's no practical application of it. At each their own. Some people are able to do both. Rabbi Yosef was able to do both. As Yored said, was 3 years ago Friday. I can't believe it's been 3 years since Chavali passed away. Chacham Ovadia Yosef. Rabbi Ovadia Yosef. This was
Sorry.
yeah. He left us an interesting generation. It's a different world, pre and post. Halet Chaviro. If you see your friend, שציציותיו נגררות על הארץ, and his ציציות are being dragged around the ground, יודיענו על כך, you should tell him, כדי שיגביהן, so that he should lift them up. So you see your friend is walking around and sees them dragging on the floor, so hey, shmush, pick up your tzitziot. Hey, pick up your tzitziot. In a nice way. You're not the police, you're just here to help him fulfill his mitzvah better. ואם כשהוא לובש הטלית רואה שהציציות מגיעות לארץ, and if a person sees that his tzitziot, just there's nothing he could do, his height and the size of his talit means his tzitziot are always going to be on the floor. L'shai, it's permissible for him להגביה tzitziot, to lift the strings, ולדחוף אותן בחגורתו אשר במותניו. He can tuck the tzitziot, he can lift them up, and he can tuck them into his belt. according to some of the Mekubalim, the Mooncatcher Rebbe, Rabbi Shalom, felt that you shouldn't tuck your tzitziot into anything, because tzitziot in Kabbalah are the Or HaMakif, the light that surrounds you, they shouldn't go into you. He had, but according to Halacha here, we're talking Pshat, is that your tzitziot are going to drag. You don't want your tzitziot to drag, so you can lift them up. I do this on Yom Kippurim. And my talit that I wear is a smaller, it's a Sephardic talit, not a Yemenite one, so it's a little bit smaller, not so comfortable for me. It slips a lot. And I wear this shiny robe, which a lot of times makes it. I find very often that my back tzitziot are on the ground. So what I do, when I put on my talit, I immediately stick the tzitziot into my belt, and that way, even if it falls, the sides fall, the strings never go on the ground. It's not such a terrible thing to do. I see Hasidim, if they have a gartel, they'll do this a lot also. There's use for having an extra rope around your body. It comes in handy. And at this point in time, you guys get a mazal tov.
Yeah.
Siman tov, mazal tov, mazal tov, siman tov, siman tov, mazal tov, mazal tov, siman tov, mazal tov, mazal tov, siman tov. Kehilanu, 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 ulechol Yisrael, Kehilanu, Kehilanu, ulechol Yisrael, David melech Yisrael. חי וקיים, דוד מלך ישראל, חי וקיים.